Welcome to Radiant Health, how to create health from the inside out. I'm your host, Lori Waka, and I just want to say how happy I am that you're here today with us. Hopefully, you found a nice, peaceful, quiet place to sit and just take this all in. You never know, you might hear something today that you really needed to hear. And I am so excited to introduce my guest, Miko Lau. Miko is a pleasure transformational coach, and she supports women across the globe to help them blossom mentally, physically, sexually, spiritually, and she is helps them with deep healing and transformation. So, first of all, welcome Miko, and thank you so much for doing this with me today.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Lori. Thank you so much for having me on this show. I think it's amazing what you're putting together, and I'm so honored that I'm here.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. So, I'm going to start today by asking you, what does radiant health mean to you?
Such a great question. So, radiant health means to me, obviously, is something that comes from inside and out. It is where we are so at peace and centered and grounded emotionally, mentally, and physically, so that our natural light, our natural radiance just shines through. There's no garbage standing in the way, no blockages standing in the way from maybe limiting beliefs or emotional wounds that we haven't fully integrated. So to me, it's about peeling back the layers. Like we are, every one of us is this beautiful, luminous, radiant ball of light like the sun. But for some of us, it may be covered up by clouds. And coming back to radiant health would just look like peeling back those layers of clouds, releasing, letting go of the garbage so that our light can naturally shine through.
Oh, that's beautiful. I completely agree. And what a great analogy about the clouds. It's true. If we're
Mhm.
if we have clouds over us or within us, we aren't able to naturally shine our light. So, what would you say the one of the key to radiant health has been for you, a key to success in your life?
Mm. I would say always coming back to my truth, like understanding what I am, and notice I say what I am and not just who I am, because sometimes I feel like as humanity as a whole, we can tend to be so identified with the personal self that we have cultivated over time, the aspects of our personalities that we have developed growing up, maybe as protective mechanisms or as coping mechanisms to protect us from something that was painful from the past or something that we couldn't process at that age in time with our consciousness. So these components and these aspects of who we have developed, but may not necessarily be who we really are or what we are as a spiritual being. And just reminding me every moment of every day coming back home to, okay, there is something more than just this physical personal self that is here living life, that's here experiencing the human experience. So coming back to that understanding and tapping into the broader perspective, the bigger picture, really supports me in my journey of tuning back into what feels in alignment to my core.
Wow, that's a great explanation. And I know the older I get, the more I realize that so much of this kind of the baggage that we carry with us that
Mhm.
can stem from youth, from childhood, different, like you said, a trauma or just life in general. And so I like how you put that. And how would you say that you practice radiant health each day? How do you acquire that?
So obviously it's like all different components. It's like the mental, emotional, physical, like all of those, and spiritual, they're all important. We cannot bypass one or give up one for the other. And obviously physically, I it's so important to hydrate. There's a mantra that I love to say, meditate and hydrate. Meditation is for like my spiritual, mental, emotional well-being. And then hydrating obviously is for my physical health. So understanding that every day I get to have the nutrients that my body need. Like I think all of this is very like common sense. A lot of your listeners probably already know. So having that in place as a pillar, as a foundation, and then doing the meditation part, like anything as a, just like how we have physical hygiene, right? We brush our teeth, we take care of our bodies in those physical ways. We also get to have spiritual hygiene practices, right? Whatever that looks like for you. Like for me, it would be creating sacred space and time for me to purge my emotions, right? To let it out instead of repressing it, keeping them in. It's to creating a safe space for these emotions to flow through me. And what I do for me personally is a lot of embodied practices where I'm getting in touch with my body. I am in relationship with my body, with my emotions. And I do that through dancing, pole dancing. Sometimes I love to just put on some headphones and listen to music and allowing, like feeling the emotions literally flow through me. If it's sadness, if it's happiness and joy, and just feeling that flow through me, being so conscious about that, that allows me to be constantly like in flow versus keeping certain emotions in my body, and which will create a blockage, that like what we mentioned earlier about the clouds covering up a radiant health.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. And so I've worked with you, and one thing I learned from you is to embrace all the emotions, even the negative ones. And
Mhm.
that was hard for me. And getting in tune with your body is, I can see how important it is. And I think that I lost kind of being in tune with my body for a while, and I'm
Mhm.
slowly trying to get back into that. And that's one of those things that I don't necessarily feel really comfortable about. And I imagine there might be a lot of women out there who feel the same way.
Mhm.
So I love that that's something that you coach on and that you help with, because that is so important. Um, how would you say that you have grown uh, through this practice of radiant health
Mhm.
over the time that you've been doing this?
Mm, I love this question. Well, I mean, first of all, it's always a process, right? There's never, I would say, like, okay, I made it, I've created radiant health. Like, even up until now, there's still like the ups and downs, ups and downs, like moment by moment, day by day. And to me, what I've really learned, the most important thing is that it's being compassionate and graceful with myself and my journey, and also understanding that there's a saying that goes around that they say health is wealth. Like without me feeling good in my body, like I tend to also experience moments where I just don't want to do anything. And that for me, like that energy, that radiance, that radiant health always get to come first. It is the life force. It is the energy source that we get that fuel everything else that we do, the relationships that we build with each other, the success that we create in our business, in our work. Like without this radiant health, then we really don't have any energy. It's like the gasoline to your car. It's the battery to our phones, to our devices. Like without plugging in that energy, then we are just pushing ourselves, and it's putting ourselves in that state of overdrive or burnout, and it's not sustainable over time.
Wow, that's what an important point. It's not sustainable over time. And that's kind of what happens to us, is when we start getting that physically unhealthy and emotionally, mentally. So it's like we need to learn to give ourselves grace.
Mhm.
And that's so important. And I'm still learning that myself.
Me
Thank you.
too.
I suppose it's kind of almost like a lifelong thing. I suppose
Yeah.
we're always going to be working on that. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a daily, I would say it's a moment by moment process, because there's always going to be emotions that come up for us that we get to process, relax and release. And just like with our bodies are changing all the time. Maybe as we grow into a different phase of our life, then our body needs certain different nutrients. So it is about, to me, it's about building an intimate relationship with our bodies, understanding what our bodies needs, what they are, honoring those needs as they come along. And without getting intimate with our bodies, we wouldn't know what we need. So it's all about relationship building.
Nice. I like that. Thank you. How would you say that choosing radiant health has helped you um, be a more positive impact on the world?
Mm. Well, just like the sun, going back to the analogy, like we love to be in the presence of those who are radiant and healthy and vibrant. Like it's that essence, that presence that is so contagious. People want to be in that presence. People want to feel the well-being and the health and the vibrancies of another person, because when maybe we are not at that stage, just by being in that energy can help us feel that well-being is accessible, like it's available for us, and almost like borrowing other people's resource while we are building up our own. So it's powerful. You're also your light, that radiance that you're shining out, it's also creating a positive like energy, upliftment and warmth and joy for other people. So it's not just for yourself. Like when you're radiating, it is fueling everyone around you.
I completely agree with that. It's like you feed off of each other's energy, and if that energy is positive and, like you said, radiant, that's
Mhm.
going to attract it back to each other. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
that's thank you. That's great. Um, how how do you show up for yourself each day, which helps support living the life that you love?
Mm. So one of the key thing for me personally, it's really tuning into what my heart desire versus doing so. And this goes back to living from here and up, right? Living in our head versus living like in a full body and body experience. Is to, again, building an intimate relationship with my heart, understanding what my heart and my soul desires to do, to be in this moment, versus listening to this personal self that it's in my mind telling me, okay, I should do this, I should do that, based on society's expectations, or based on the past conditioning, or based on the past coping mechanisms that I have developed as a way to protect myself from fears, or being in survival mode, whatever that looks like. That's usually in my head. It's that nonstop chatter in the mind. So really continuously tuning in to what my heart desires or what it's telling me to do really supports me every single day.
Wow, that's great, and that's something that I've been really working on. I find that I'm feeling like I'm always constantly on that hamster wheel,
Mhm.
and not really maybe paying as much attention to my heart's desire, what's in my heart, as much as I should be. I'm in my head a lot, and the stories that you put in your head, like you said, that constant chatter,
Yeah.
it can be difficult to quiet down.
Yeah, and Lauren, you're not alone in this. Like most of us are just so conditioned to live in that survival mode, the fight, or freeze, and where we are constantly thinking about so future oriented, worrying about something that may or may not even happen, working towards something that we feel like happiness and fulfillment and success and joy and all of that is on the other side of something in the future. That puts us in a state of survival, and that we are at no capacity to just drop down to our body. Like being able to drop down to our body requires a sense of safety, a sense of security, that it's okay. It's okay that we don't need to run away from some sort of threat, or try to protect ourselves. So it requires us to be in that relaxed state in order to even tune into our body. So it makes sense if we are so much always on that overdrive, like our nervous system on literally like overload all the time, that we would just live in the head. So it takes time to rewire that and to wind down our nervous system so we can relax.
You know, that's such a good point. And when you first talked to me about that, that's the first time I'd really ever heard it stated that way. And it's almost like a weight off your shoulders when you can kind of just realize that you don't have to be in this state of constant state of want, that you can
Mhm.
just slow down and breathe.
Yes, yes.
So, yeah, so I really appreciate that. That's so important to share. And speaking of, what would you say is like one of the most valuable things that you can share with our listeners today about radiant health, maybe what they can do for themselves with radiant health?
Mm. So, since we're going into the direction of talking about like the nervous system on overdrive, which that really creates such a tremendous sense of stress. And stress is, Lori, as you probably know, it's like one of the biggest factor when it comes to illness, physical ailments. And so, what we can do starting from this point forward, if you can take away one thing from this conversation, is to reminding yourself to breathe again. That is so simple, but so many of us totally forget to breathe. And I'm not talking about shallow breathing where it's just like on your chest, but it's about really dropping into your belly. And like if it would support you, you can even place like a hand physically like touching yourself in the belly area so that your awareness and your focus and your attention, it's in the belly, and then imagining like breathing through this belly area and like really slowing it down and then breathing out, just like would slow down your nervous system. I know this because like before I would always be in the hustle and grind and the chasing and the striving mode that I realized I forgot how to breathe like for I don't even know how long. And I would notice the tension like up here in my neck and my shoulder and would just be like constantly like this, even though it's unconscious. But the moment that I breathe, like take some deep breaths in and just calming down my nervous system, it allows me to be in the now, to be in this moment where if you can really fully be here and right now, you will realize that there's no problems. Like everything that you're stressed about in this moment, it doesn't exist. Like everything you're concerned about, that you're stressed about, that you're anxious about, if you can ground yourself in this moment and you're breathing, you realize that everything is okay
Hmm.
right here and right now.
Yes.
So that's a practice that we can all start implementing to create more peace and stress-free moments in our days.
That's such good advice, and it's so true. I know that when I, like you said, when I'm kind of just running around, that I'm just wound tightly, and like you said, you can just feel your shoulders are up, and the breathing is shallow. If I remember to actually just slow down and, like you said, breathe deeply, and even you talking about it just now just brought such a peaceful calming to
Mhm.
me, because I kind of closed my eyes a little when you were talking about it, and it was like, yeah, it's almost immediate. I can just feel this everything just slowing down and really nice. And it's like when you're like nervous about maybe giving a speech or something, it's, I feel like the anxiety leading up to these things
Mhm.
just almost debilitates us, and it's
Mhm.
so scary. But when the actual event happens, it's actually okay. It's not a bad thing. This is,
Yeah.
and I think over my life, I finally learned that it's not worth the energy that I give these things that I'm like anxious about doing, because the only time that it's you're going to be doing it is just in the moment. So
Mhm.
just like relax and let it be. So
Yeah, like adding on top of that, all of the anxiety and stress and worries that we experience is usually because we are using our powerful mental energy, our mind, with the intellect, to think about the worst case scenario sometime in the future that may or may not happen. And if you know that, if you understand that, think of it, if you use that same powerful, potent, like energy force in your mind, instead of thinking about the worst case scenario, which you are at choice, you're at power to decide, what if you use that energy to think about the best case scenario instead in the future that may or may not happen? How will things shift for you, right? Instead of thinking, oh my goodness, next month I won't have money to pay rent, I'm gonna go broke, I'm gonna be homeless. Instead of going down that path, which you're at choice and at power to choose so, you think about the best case scenario. Oh my goodness, what if I had the biggest income month, and I generate my first 10K month or 100K month, and I get my own beautiful mansion, whatever that looks like. It's the same exact thought process, except you get to choose which direction to go.
And what an easy tweak, but it's like we don't think about that because it's so easy for me to let all the negative thoughts come in, and I have to actually consciously think about the positive thoughts. But you're right, it makes such a difference, and you will see a difference in your life when you start doing that. I agree.
Yeah.
So thank you. If somebody listening here would like to get in touch with you or learn more about what you're doing, would you like to share that now, what you're up to right now? And I will share, any links or anything on the email that is sent out to our listeners with this interview.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lori, for being so gracious about that. So what I'm doing right now, the easiest way to continuously receive like content or anything you would like to get from me, it's by tuning into my Blossoming Into You show, which is a show where I feature women across the globe to bring them on, where they get to have a safe, nurturing, and supportive space for them to fully express themselves mentally, emotionally, sexually, physically, spiritually. We have so much fun and juicy conversations ranging from sexual empowerment to generating financial abundance through pleasure and fun and ease, and to relationships where we come back from betrayal to dating in a place where we are liberated. So we have all types of fun and juicy conversations, and you can tune in by going on blossomingintoyou.com, and I know Lori is going to share that link. And I'm also opening up my calendar if anyone would like to have a deep dive on one-on-one conversations. I will be more than happy to connect with you on a 30 minutes call as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to mention that I have been in a coaching program with you, and it's all that you say it is. It's wonderful. I came out of it just with so many valuable tools to help me. So I definitely encourage everyone to take a look at Miko's website, and I will go ahead and put that link on the email. So before we go, is there anything else that you'd like to share or I may have missed about Radiant Health?
Well, first off, I do want to say, Lori, like what an amazing series you're putting together, especially now, like in the midst of where health is like such a priority. And I think the tools and the wisdom that you're gathering together for our audience, like when we reclaim our health in this way, we are also reclaiming a huge part of our personal power, like understanding how our bodies work, like understanding that we are at responsibility in terms of like creating that radiant health versus depending on something external of us, like maybe on medicine or the pharmaceutical industry or even doctors. Like the more we can come back home to generating and creating the type of health that we desire, it's also in essence that we are reclaiming our personal power. So I want to say thank you for that, and thank you for all the audience for tuning in and dedicating time for yourself. Like this is an act of self-love. So way to go for tuning in.
That was great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Miko. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you tomorrow with the next video. Bye.